Hello everyone. Welcome to today's session by ManageEngine. I'm Anusha Muralidharan, your host for the day. The session topic for today is leveraging user behavior analytics and machine learning algorithms in your PAM strategy, where we'll discuss a set of practical use cases about how modern technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning can elevate your organization's privileged access management program. Now, I would like to take a moment and introduce our session presenters, Praveen and Sai Lakshmi. Praveen is an IT security solutions expert and has over 12 years of cybersecurity experience. He has been with ManageEngine for the last 9 years. Our other speaker is Sai, a product expert at ManageEngine. Her work here revolves around understanding the IT analytics and reporting requirements of organizations around the world. So Praveen will be starting today's session. And before I hand over the session to Praveen, I would like to let you all know that we'll have time for questions towards the end. Praveen and Sai will take questions and clarify your queries once the presentation is over. Meanwhile, you can drop your questions using the Q&A option available in the control panel on your left. And in case your audio or your video is not clear enough, you can always let us know using the chat option and we'll make sure we better it. And so without making you wait further, let us start. Praveen, the stage is yours. Please take it off. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anusha. Hello, everyone. First, I'm going to start off with why a zero trust privilege. When you speak in terms of PAM, the zero trust approach we are going to focus is the zero trust privilege. The legacy PAM system has been around for decades. The environment was managed by sysadmins where they check out a password from the password vault to access a server, database, or a network device. So the legacy PAM was serving its purpose for quite some time. However, today's environment is completely different. Privileged access not only covers infrastructure, databases, and network devices, but it also extends to other critical environment, which includes DevOps, ITSM, analytics, machine learning, etc. So zero trust privilege is designed to handle requesters that are not only human but also machine services and APIs. The shared accounts will still be there, but for increased security, we strongly recommend using individual identities or accounts that are not shared. So, least privilege can be applied on these accounts and identities. These access must be dynamic and risk free, which requires modern machine learning and user behavior analytics. A zero trust privilege approach helps enterprise grant least privilege access based on verifying who is requesting the access, the context of the request, and the risk of the access environment. By implementing least privilege access, zero trust privilege minimizes the attacker surface, and by improving audit and compliance visibility, and reduces the risk and complexity and cost for the modern hybrid enterprise. Zero trust privilege is built on six principles. The very first one is going to be verify who. Today's identities is not just people but application services and machines. So properly verifying who means leveraging enterprise identities, which eliminates local accounts and decreasing the overall number of accounts and password, which will in turn reduce the attacker's surface. The second principle is going to be contextualize request. First, we need to start why it is important to have a request and approve process in place. For each request, it is important to know why somebody or some application is performing the privileged activity. To do this, we must understand the context behind the request for access, and the request must be reviewed and approved based on the context provided. The concept of least privilege is to only provide the needed level of privilege to perform a certain task on only for the amount of time necessary. Also, to execute least privilege, the grantor of the access must understand the context behind it. Next principle is to secure admin environment. When accessing a privileged resource, it is critical that we ensure that the access is secure and through clean source. Zero trust privilege means preventing direct access from user workstation and providing access via a secure solution like ManageEngine PAM 360. The secure connections allow web-based SSH RDP telnet that works from any location, especially for outsourced third-party users. They can take a secure connection without having access to any of the sensitive information like passwords and clear text. And the next principle is going to be granting the least privilege. So, least privilege as a concept is more common than you realize. So, let's take an example of a physical access control at your office. Different levels of users have different access, right? And to get access to certain areas, you must request and get it approved by an admin. So this is all very well recognized in physical security space. And the same logic applies for logical security also. It applies when granting granular role based access to privileged resources. Another objective to grant least privilege is to limit lateral movement across the network, because this is the primary way attackers get access to sensitive data. They start in one location and move laterally until they find what they are looking for. So, if we zone off what they have access to, then we can stop the lateral movement. Just like nobody should have access to a password that has access for every devices, application, servers in the infrastructure. So you really don't want to use the root account on the server because it gives so much access. And the next principle is audit. So for privilege session, it is of course the best practice to audit everything with a documented record of all actions performed. Audit logs not only can be used in forensic analysis to find the issue, but also to attribute actions taken by the specific user. Because these sessions are so critical, it is also a best practice to keep a video recording of the session that can be reviewed or used as an evidence for most critical asserts and the actions performed in the session. The very last principle is the adaptive control. So, Gartner promotes continuous adaptive risk and trust assessment, shortly named as CATA, and it's absolutely required for privileged access too. So, zero trust privilege not only mean that right credentials have been entered by the user, but the request also comes in from a very secured location. Adaptive control is not only notifying the risky activity in real time, but also being able to actively respond to incidents by cutting off the session or adding additional monitoring or flagging the forensic follow up. To deliver zero trust, today's privileged access management solution cannot simply rely on a vaulting mechanism. They must cover in detail both privileged account and session management, as well as privileged elevation and delegation management. Also, to sufficiently verify who, it must include privileged threat analytics. To make it even more valuable, it must have a proper machine learning based analytics tools like ManageEngine Analytics Plus. With that note, Sai will take this further and explain about the user behavior analytics and practical use cases showcasing real time threat analytics in PAM program.
Thank you, Praveen. Before we start off, I'd like to inform you about what user behavior analysis really is. User behavior analysis is the application of advanced analytics to analyze user behavior data to identify anomalies in user behavior. It can be used to detect security threats such as malicious insider threats or compromised privileged accounts. In 2015, Gartner updated this definition to include entities, that is, UBA then became UEBA, which stands for User and Entity Behavior Analysis. This includes analyzing the behavior of entities such as routers, servers, and endpoints. User and entity behavior analysis is a powerful tool that can detect any form of security threat from users and IT devices. Next, let's move on to understanding how user behavior analysis really works. User and entity behavior analysis involves analysis of large volumes of historical user behavior data to understand normal user behavior and establish baselines. User behavior analysis systems will then use these baselines as a reference point to compare bulk user behavior data. When they don't match the baseline, these activities can be classified as anomalies and flagged to the security team. User behavior analysis can be used to analyze user behavior based on time, count, and pattern. Now, let me give you a few examples to explain these clearly. First, we have John, who's an engineer who works for a power and utilities company that supplies electricity to the city. He logs in at 9 a.m. each morning and logs out at 6 p.m. each evening. This is his normal behavior. So if he logs in at 3 a.m. one morning from a remote location, this becomes a time-based anomaly and can be flagged as unusual behavior as it does not fit John's regular behavioral pattern. Next, we have Kathy, who's a marketer who regularly accesses customer data using her firm's Customer Relationship Management application or CRM. So when you find Kathy accessing the customer database from a remote location and running multiple SQL queries to pull data from the CRM application, you have an anomaly in count which can be flagged as unusual user behavior. And finally, we have George, who's an illustrator who creates stunning artwork for his company's web pages. One day, George accesses several design files and starts to delete and modify several sensitive files. This is a pattern-based anomaly and can be flagged as unusual user behavior. All the three cases that we just discussed have one thing in common: the use of baselines to determine normal and abnormal user behavior. Creating baselines for normal user behavior forms the crux of user behavior analysis, and this is what enables you to determine threats to an enterprise's security framework. Next, let's look at what user and entity behavior analysis is composed of. To understand how user and entity behavior analysis works, we need to look at its framework. It's composed of four parts. First, we have data collection that includes aggregating large volumes of user behavior data and log data of entities. Next is storage of this raw data so that it can be used for further analysis whenever needed. Penultimately is the analysis of user behavior data that mostly involves a robust analytics engine that can run through tons of user data to identify patterns, identify anomalies, and flag them as threats. And finally, response that involves integration of user behavior analysis with PAM 360 to take corrective action instantly in response to a security threat. Next, let's look at the challenges in analyzing user behavior. There are numerous roadblocks to analyzing user behavior, and several questions tend to pop up. Questions like, how do you analyze user behavior data? What application is the right fit for my organization? And the most important question of all, who would take ownership of the analysis? Because neither the security team nor the IT team are experts in data analysis. Typically, data regarding user behavior is housed in several databases or applications that require highly skilled data analysis and experts to extract data to put together visualizations in order to understand and gain perspective on user behavior. Now, this is a process that takes a considerable amount of time. And remember, one of the most important aspects of a risk-based approach to address security is to get timely information about the deviations or anomalies found in user behavior. This is where advanced analytics comes into play. Powered by the combined capabilities of machine learning algorithms, natural language processing, and artificial intelligence, analytics solutions can quickly crunch large volumes of user behavior data to build descriptive and predictive models of user behavior to identify normal activity. For example, let's say you notice a user accessing a privileged account from two different geographical locations. Now, normally it would take several hours to go back and analyze 3 to 6 months worth of user behavior data manually to identify this anomaly. But with the aid of a robust analytics solution, such as Analytics Plus, you can cut down this process to a few seconds so that you can easily understand how users and entities behave within and outside your environment easily. It helps you prioritize high risk user behavior, helps security experts focus on imminent threats by creating thresholds for normal behavior and setting up smart alerts for deviations from normal behavior. Now that you know how user behavior analysis works and the challenges involved, let's move on to the use cases. As you all know, in any organization, privileged accounts are always a sweet target to steal data from. Privileged accounts are most vulnerable and are often under threat from internal and external sources. An external threat can come from hackers who try to hack into an organization's data by gaining access to a privileged account. Internal threats are a little more complex and not as straightforward as external threats. This is because internal security breaches could be intentional or accidental. An accidental threat is when organizations pay scant attention to the rising number of users who have access to privileged accounts. An increase in number of privileged account users increases the opportunity for malicious entities to gain free entry into an organization's IT network through its many privileged accounts. An intentional threat could come from a disgruntled employee who tries to do damage to the organization by stealing critical information from the organization's databases. Now that you know what are the various threats you can expect, I'm going to show you how you can detect them using user behavior analysis. I'm going to explain 5 different use cases, and in each of the cases, I'll explain the problem, meaning the possible source of the threat, and then show you using reports how you can spot each of these threats. Most of the reports that I'm going to show you are pre-built, so I won't be showing you how to create them. I'll just show you how to use them. In case you want to learn how to create these reports yourself, or if you have any questions, please use the questions panel in the left side of your screen. We'll answer your questions at the end of the session. So our first use case for the day. Let's see how user behavior analysis can help you identify admin access given to users on an ad hoc basis. So let's say you're working on a critical project, a product that needs to be shipped soon, or a bug fix that needs to go out immediately. Under these special circumstances, admin access is given to some users on an ad hoc basis to enable them to complete their work faster. Now, this access elevation is intended to be a temporary arrangement. So naturally, these admin privileges must be revoked as soon as the project is over. However, that is rarely the case. Without an automated system to revoke access, these users continue to retain and enjoy elevated privileges. With the user behavior analysis, you can easily track the elevated access privileges of all users. All you have to do is look up the access privileges of everyone in a team or in a similar role. This will help you understand the typical level of clearance or access permission that is granted to members within a team. Now, let me switch to the product UI and show you the reports. In the first report, we have a split up of user roles along with the level of access. So you can see user roles such as privileged, such as administrators, password users, and then again administrators. In the report, you can see that several password users have full access and access to modify passwords while the others in the same role don't. Now, this is an anomaly that needs to be rectified. Once you know the level of access privileges enjoyed by everyone in a team, You can easily spot users who have elevated privileges that are not required for their role, and then you can cut back on those privileges. Now that this report helps you identify who are the users who have elevated privileges, Praveen will explain how PAM 360 solution can help you cut back on those privileges.
Thank you, Sai. So, as Sai said, a normal user should not have privileges on all the target systems. So, PAM 360 provides an access control mechanism that allows administrators to grant password access to users for a specific period. Admin can start granting exclusive privileges once a password is ready to share, and only one user is allowed to use a particular password at any point of time. Additionally, administrators can provide just in time privileges by elevating a local user account in a Windows resource. For example, assume a DB user is a local account in a Windows resource which has been added inside PAM 360, and this account does not have any admin privileges. Using the just-in-time privilege elevation feature, admins can elevate DB user privileges equal to that of an admin or any other privileged user. So the just-in-time privilege feature comes in handy in situations where a local account may not have access privileges to use certain applications or services in the system. So using the just-in-time privilege elevation feature, administrators can provide timely and controlled access to accounts to operate for a specific period. This feature gives administrators the ability to control who can access what and for how long, thereby eliminating the need to provide unnecessary access for all accounts. This is based on the principle of the least privileged access, which is one of the core philosophies of zero trust network or zero trust privilege. Now, I will get into the PAM solution and I will show you how this privilege works. So here, so this is an resource, okay, and let's say a DB user who named Adam, right? He needs a privilege of to perform some actions on the database. So now Adams does not have any privilege. With access control, right, we have an option here where we will be able to elevate the user privileges by adding him to the security groups. So once PAM 360 is integrated with Active Directory, you will have an option where you will be able to select all the security groups which are available in your AD. And if I want to add Adams to this administrator group, I'm just going to select this group, click on save. And once it's been saved, Adams, whenever he requests for an access and it's been approved by an administrator, he will be added to this administrator security group, wherein he will have the privileges of an administrator. Also, the product using the access control functionality, you can restrict the time frame for which that privilege access should be available for Adams. So you can define whether it should be 30 minutes or 60 minutes. Apart from that, even though Adams is account is elevated and it's been removed, still as a security best practice, you can also reset the password which is being used by the Adams to in order to access that particular machine. So with this just-in-time privileges, you will be able to elevate a particular account privileges by adding it to a security group, and also for the time specified here. Post that time duration, the user will be automatically removed from the security groups and his access privileges will be remote, right? So now my Sai will explain you about the next use case.
Thank you, Praveen. Our next use case for the day, we'll see how user behavior analysis can help you track suspicious activity by privileged account users. Now, one of the most reliable telltale signs of a threat is when privileged account users engage in suspicious activities. The origin of these threats are always ambiguous until discovered. What I mean is that it could be an insider who's trying to gain access to a secure system or an outsider who's trying to access a compromised account. For example, users logging in at odd hours or non-business hours. Typically, users log in and log out at specific hours. This puts them into a bucket of predictable user behavior, and their operations can be classified as standard operations. So, when users log in at odd hours that are not their typical operational hours, that is suspicious. However, it could also be an outsider who's trying to access your systems. The only way to track this is by analyzing the user behavior data from your PAM 360 application. By tracking users' regular pattern of login and logout time, you can build a basic user profile for standard operations. So anytime your users stray away from this predictable behavior pattern, you can flag it down as an anomaly and track them down. Now, let me switch to the product and show you a dashboard that will help you track user behavior. Now, this dashboard is a good way to catch user behavior, any deviations in user behavior early on. In the dashboard, we have a few reports and a few widgets. Please just give us a moment. Yeah, there it is. Now, in this dashboard, you can see a few reports and a few widgets at the top. Now, the widgets are the first one you can see the number of non-business hour operations performed, which is 254. Then you can see the most frequently used non-business hour operations, which happens to be password verification failed. Then we have the number of non-business hour sessions and the user with the most number of unauthorized access, who is the admin. Moving on to the report, the first report shows you the operations performed during non-business hours. Considering that typically businesses operate between 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., I've considered the time after that, that is from 9:01 p.m. to 7:59 a.m. as non-business hours. You can always customize this time frame based on your business's operating hours. It would be safe to say that operations performed outside of business hours are a cause for concern and needs further attention. The next report gives you the trend of passwords being accessed by various users during non-business hours. Just like the previous report, I've configured operational hours based on my use case. You can always customize them as per your requirements. Coming back to the report, you can see that several users have accessed their passwords during non-business hours. All of these may not be a cause for concern because in most cases, employees tend to take their work home or log in after hours to complete any pending work that they may have. But if you notice too many such operations happening at once, then it is a cause for concern. This dashboard helps you understand user behavior and set up user profiles based on their activities performed, login hours, and also allows you to spot any deviation from standard behavior. Now that you know how to track suspicious activity by privileged account users using analysis, Praveen will show you how you can use this information to better secure your systems using PAM 360.
Thank you, Sai. So, yes, as Sai mentioned, with the analytics tool, we have identified that password is being accessed during non-business hours. So, we need to understand what the user has done with that password. So, with PAM 360, um, it is possible to record and play back the privileged session that are launched from PAM 360. so which will help you to support forensic audits and allow enterprise to monitor all actions performed by the privileged accounts during the sessions. The session recording caters to the audit and compliance requirement of organization that mandate proactive monitoring activities, thereby eliminating administrators to readily answer the questions who, what, and when of the privileged access. You can make use of PAM 360 to record Windows RDP, SSH Telnet, and SQL sessions, which are launched from the PAM 360's interface. Apart from that, the remote connections are tunneled through PAM 360 server, so user machine does not require direct connectivity to the remote host. In addition to it, the tunneled connectivity provides extreme security as passwords needed to establish the remote connection is not available at the user's browser. The session recording capability is an extension of the robust remote login mechanism of PAM 360. Next one is the PAM 360 lets administrator monitor the privileged sessions on highly sensitive IT resources, where admins can join an active session, absorb user activities, and terminate them in case of any suspicious activities. Admins can also offer assistance to user while monitoring user activities during troubleshooting session. So let's say Adams is trying to work on a RDP session to install a particular software or a database and he has some trouble in it. So the administrator who is monitoring that particular session, he can collaborate with Adams and he can provide his assistance during the remote session. Now, I will in the product, I will show you where this functionality lies. When you go to audits, we will have recorded connections where all the recorded sessions like RDP, SSH, Telnet will be available and you can play these sessions whenever you need. So you can view it as a video. And all the recorded sessions we record even if there is a mouse movement or keystrokes, and standstill or ideal sessions are not recorded. So if user performs any activity during the session, it will be completely recorded and stored as a video. And we also have active privilege session where if a user has launched a connection and if the administrators would like to barge in and see what he is doing, he can join the session from this active privilege session and he can have a live monitoring of what the user is doing. And if in case he finds any suspicious activity, he can forcefully terminate the session from this tool. So this way, if you identify passwords or used between non-business hours in analytics dashboard, you can always log into the PAM 360 and you can see what the user has done with that password or what he is doing with the privilege session, right? So now Sai will explain you about the next use case.
Thank you, Praveen. This use case is a little interesting. We'll see how advanced analytics can help you track intentional or malicious activity by privileged users. These activities could include increase in the number of operations or a sudden increase in the number of privileged accounts accessed. Today, security threats such as corporate espionage or data exfiltration are on the rise. And more often than we'd like to admit, these threats rise from insiders. Recently fired employees, disgruntled employees, or employees who bear a grudge towards their employer pose a serious security threat to the organization. In order to set up their line of defense, organizations must stay vigilant and analyze user behavior to look for any risky behavior from end users that can set off an Edward Snowden-like threat. Start with a sudden increase in the number of account operations. Now, let me switch to the product UI and show you a couple of reports. In the report for most active users, you can see the users by their name and the different operations that they have performed. You can see that these operations are mostly user or resource operation or password operations by selecting the options here. In the report, you can see that one of my users, that is user 1, has performed several password operations recently. This is quite unusual for him, because the others in his team haven't performed this many number of operations. To get further clarity on what type of operations were performed, I can use the user filter at the top of this report to filter this report by activity type. Let me select account added and account deleted as the operations. Now you can see that admin has deleted over 1,000 account passwords. As a general practice, users should not be performing activities other than password retrievals, password requests, and session initiation during non-business hours. When you see such actions such as account deletions, resource transfer, or addition, it could be a cause for concern, because you can assume that operations performed during non-business hours happen with lesser supervision. Let's now move on to our next report. Another behavior that's very risky, but one that can easily catch using user behavior analytics, is a sudden increase in the number of privileged accounts accessed simultaneously. Your day-to-day IT operations require only a fixed number of administrators and a fixed number of users to access privileged accounts anytime. So in case there's an unexpected spike in the number of privileged accounts accessed on a particular day, it's an anomaly. It means that there's a threat lurking around, and you need to find out why there's an increase in the number of privileged accounts accessed simultaneously. Now look into the report on your screen that shows you the number of privileged accounts accessed by each user. This will help you identify users who have access to too many privileged accounts, and then you can decide if those users really need to access that many privileged accounts. Remember, greater the number of privileged account users, greater are the chances for your accounts to get hacked into. So you might want to minimize the number. Use this report to decide how many users really need privileged account access. Over to Praveen, who will explain further on this topic.
All right. So with analytics, we found out that there is a sudden increase in the privileged accounts, and let's see how PAM 360 can help you in controlling these privileged accounts. So PAM 360 as a solution acts like a centralized password vault, wherein all your passwords will be stored in one centralized secure repository, and whatever passwords and sensitive information which is stored inside this tool will undergo dual layer of encryption. So AES 256-bit level encryption will be applied at the application level and once again at the database level. So all the sensitive information are secure in one centralized repository. The next one is going to be sharing. So the administrator who adds all the passwords, he decide who needs access to which account or password, and he is going to share that respective password or account with the user. This way, administrator of the PAM 360 will have complete control, and he knows to whom the password has to be shared. On top of it, if you have any critical assets or if you have any third party employees who needs access for these privileged accounts, then you can have a workflow mechanism in place, which I showed you in the beginning of the session. So with that workflow, administrators can approve the password request. Only then the user will be able to make use of it. And apart from that, we also have a very extensive integration with IAM tools like Active Directory, LDAP, Samwell, and we also support multi-factor authentication. So anyone who needs access to the PAM 360 will undergo dual layer of, they will undergo a dual multi-layer of authentication in order to access all the privileged identities and passwords which are stored inside our tool. And we also have a few predefined roles, and you can also create your custom roles. So you can, based on the roles, you can decide what are the actions the users can perform inside our application. Right. So Now, let's look into the next use case.
Thank you, Praveen. For our next use case, let's see how analytics can help you identify malicious outsider attacks by former employees. It's no secret that organizations are constantly under threat from outsiders. These outsiders don't necessarily have to be people who are entirely new to your ecosystem. They could also be former employees who've left the organization for good. Often, employees continue to access their colleagues' accounts and their passwords, which they use to copy large volumes of sensitive data. The case of engineering firm Allen and Horschel in 2013 is a good eye-opener. A former employee of this firm used access credentials of his colleagues to steal years' worth of sensitive data, including schematics, emails, budget plans, and marketing documents. The most alarming aspect of this case is that the former employee had been using his colleagues' accounts for over 2 years before it was finally discovered. Despite organizations encouraging and even prompting employees to change their passwords periodically, set up combination passwords, or multi factor authentications, employees continue to neglect these suggestions, leading to several threats. Analyzing user behavior is the only way to weed out such threats from your organization. Now, let me switch to the product so I can show you a few reports. Now, the first report we have is a report that shows you the top 10 most frequently accessed passwords. It tells you how many times various passwords were used on a regular basis. You can use this report to study the trend of password usage over a period of time and establish a baseline for typical user behavior. This will help you pinpoint if there's any change in the frequency of password usage. We have one more report for this use case. Another effective way of identifying outsider attacks to your privileged accounts is to look into repeat authentication failures. Outsiders who are trying to hack into your system try to log into applications multiple times, and when these attempts fail, it's an indicator that your accounts are under threat now. This report shows you the user accounts and the number of authentication failures for each account. For this report, I considered users whose authentication failed more than twice while trying to access the privileged access management system. Now that you know how analytics can help you pinpoint malicious outsider attacks, Praveen will show you how PAM 360 can help you curb these attacks from ever happening in the first place.
Thank you, Sai. So, as Sai mentioned, we have identified some form of attack is happening in the PAM 360, right? So, if you identify it from the analytics, the immediate action you have to perform in PAM 360 is changing all the privileged identities or the passwords which are stored inside this tool. And the PAM 360 allows you to automate that complete process. And the next one is when you are resetting the identities, there should be a policy which is being enforced to make sure that the passwords which are getting reset meets the policy requirements. And apart from that, we also support a wide range of target system for which we support password resets without installing or deploying any agents. Now let me get into the product UI and show you about this. So the first thing is the password policies, where when you're resetting a password, once you identify an attack is being made, you have to reset the password, right? So when you're resetting the password, you have to have a dictionary on how the passwords has to be generated. So here you can specify the minimum password length, the maximum length, the types of characters allowed. You can set an age for the passwords and reuse of old passwords. So once the password policy is defined, the next immediate action you're going to do is you're going to reset the password. So when you're resetting the password, you can ensure the passwords which are getting reset meets the policy requirements. So it will automatically generate based on the policy which has been defined. Next, so this is an on-demand password reset for one particular account, but you need to reset most of the accounts which are being accessed, right? So in order to do that, we will have groups where you can create separate groups based on the type of accounts. For all the Windows servers, you can have a group, and for all the Linux servers, you can have a group. And once the group is created, you can perform a bulk password reset. And when you're doing it, you can either generate the unique password based on the policy, or you can type in your own password and apply it. So this is an on-demand bulk password reset. Apart from that, as a best practice, when an auditor comes in, or in the compliance part, okay, the first question they ask is how frequently you change your passwords, right? So with this password management solution, you can periodically reset the passwords, where you can generate a unique password for every account, or you can type in one password and apply it on all the accounts, or you will let the tool to generate a password based on the policy, but the same password will be applied to all the accounts in the group. So these are the three different options, and the best practice is to use the first option, which is to generate a unique password for every account. So once you select this option, in the next screen, you're going to specify the time frame, how frequently the passwords has to be reset. So it can be either daily, or you can also do it monthly. So once every month, starting date and time. So once this is defined, all the passwords will be automatically reset from the Password Manager Pro. As I mentioned you, we also support a wide range of target systems. So starting from Windows, Linux, databases, we have multiple types for which we support it. And you can just come to admin resource type, and you will be able to see all the targets for which we support password resets. All right, so this is the range of target systems, where when you change the password from our solution, it will get automatically updated on the target as well, right? And so the next use case is going to be harmful content entries. So most of us know about the cross-site scripting, right? Which is a client-side code injection attack. So when an attacker aims to execute a malicious script in a web browser or web application, the actual attack occurs at the web page or the web application that executes the malicious code. So the vulnerable website will have user inputs in its page. An attacker can insert a malicious string or code that will be used within the web page and treated as a source of the for the attack. Right? So in such cases, a security solution like PAM 360 will be affected. So to overcome it, we have something called harmful content detected. So we have a security filter in place, okay, and this security filter, whenever a user tries to log in, and if he's trying to execute or inject any HTML codes or a malicious script, the security filter which is available in the product will automatically capture an audit event stating an harmful content is being entered by the user, and this is going to be at the login process. Once again, let's say the user authenticated, and after authenticating, he is trying to input an harmful content by uh, while he is trying to add some passwords or resources inside this tool. So we can import the passwords either from a CSV or a tab separated file. That is one of the option. And if in case he has some malicious script or HTML codes in that particular CSV or tab separated file, and when he tries to import, the import will get failed, and we will get an alert stating that PAM 360 has detected an harmful content in the data entered by the user, and we will also tell the line number of that particular event. So in the CSV file, you can just go to this line, and you will be able to identify where this has been available. I mean, in which line is the script or the code is being inserted. All right. So this way, if any attacker tries to do a cross-site scripting attack, then it will be stopped by the security filters available in the PAM 360, and it will get stored as an audit event. Apart from that, so all these audit events is going to be sent to Analytics Plus, where you can also create a dashboard for all these harmful content entries. So this dashboard will tell you the users and the how the harmful content has been entered into inside the tool. So you will get the complete list of actions, right? And so with this, these are the use cases which we have discussed for today. And with this use cases, we were able to understand how analytics and the PAM 360 solution will be able to overcome uh, the uh, the pain points which have been faced in various enterprises, right? So now let's look at the PAM 360 architecture. So a PAM 360 is a solution which contains all these functionalities bundled as a single product, where we will have privilege account management or password management, in other words. We also have privilege session management, where you can record the session and playback, which also has the collaboration functionality. And we also have we also have the SSH and SSL certificate management as a part of it. And IoT is something we are working and will be available very soon. Also, if you have any internal or third party applications which you would like to integrate with PAM 360, then we have something called application to application password management, which will help you to integrate PAM 360 with your own in-house products or third party products. And we also have integration with ITSM tools like ManageEngine, Service Desk Plus, Service Desk Plus MSP, is Service Desk Plus On Demand, and other third-party ticketing softwares like Jira and ServiceNow. Apart from that, we also have DevOps integration, where we integrate with CI/CD platforms like Jenkins, Puppet, Ansible, etc. And we also have integration with SIEM tools. Uh, One of the products is going to be ManageEngine Log 360, and we also support Splunk and Small Logic, where the audit events can be passed to this SIEM tools as a syslog or SNMP trap. And the last one is going to be the BI with Analytics Plus, which I will explain you later on. So now with this PAM 360 in place, we also have three more products, point products. The first one is called as Password Manager Pro, which is for managing the privileged passwords. And then we have a exclusive product for session management, which is called as Access Manager Plus, where you will be able to manage the privileged sessions and their recordings. And the third one is going to be Key Manager Plus, which is for managing the SSH keys and SSL certificates. So these are the three point products, and all these products combined together with all third party and internal integrations, we have a product called PAM 360. Also, we have migration path from Password Manager Pro to PAM 360 in case you want to migrate it. And now coming back to the BI tool, as I mentioned, we have integrated with Analytics Plus. Okay, so ManageEngine PAM 360 integrates with ManageEngine Analytics Plus for advanced analytics, which is an on-premise reporting and business intelligence application, using which you will gain a comprehensive analysis of all your privileged account activities through a unified outlook, and with the ability to drill down into specific and actionable insights. So now Sai will explain you more about the Analytics Plus.
Thank you, Praveen. So, as Praveen explained, Analytics Plus integrates with PAM 360 seamlessly. Now, what makes this integration really tick is that the integration is so tightly knit and it's seamless that you can access Analytics Plus from within PAM 360. You don't have to switch between two different applications. Additionally, Analytics Plus also offers around 300 out of the box reports and dashboards that you can use right away. All you have to do is set up the integration and start using the reports right away. Using Analytics Plus, any PAM 360 user can easily analyze user behavior without waiting for a database admin to create reports. It features a drag and drop report builder that makes it easy to craft mastery reports in minutes. And it also features AI powered analytics assistant called Zia that makes it easy for anyone to analyze data, pull reports, and build user profiles. All you have to do is just ask or type in a question, and Zia responds instantly with visual insights. You can also use smart alerts to get notified of anomalies such as users logging in at off hours, sudden increase in the number of privileged accounts accessed, etc. You can also use the built-in report commenting feature to have contextual, real-time collaboration with other users without ever leaving your product UI. You can also leverage Analytics Plus's predictive algorithms to gauge future data trends and be prepared for future security threats. Let's That brings us to the end of today's session. Let me just wrap up with a few simple tips. It's not possible to detect all threats all the time. However, you can take some precautionary measures to prevent major mishaps. Make user behavior analysis a part of your day-to-day operations. As we discussed in some of the examples today, when it comes to security threats, there's just no alternative to analyzing user data. Analyze user data, create user profiles, and look out for deviations in user behavior. This should become a cyclic process that you do periodically to protect yourself from threats. Set up fine-grained access to critical systems. Frequently audit your systems and see how many users have access to privileged accounts and check their access levels. Likewise, mandate the use of multi-factor authentication. Nowadays, most systems support a combination of number lock, fingerprint, retinal, or voice scans, so you can use them to set up multiple authentications. Strongly advocate the use of password vaults and recommend users to change passwords periodically. You can even assign randomized passwords for privileged accounts as a countermeasure to secure your accounts against threats. Look into the origins of past security threats in your industry vertical. Analyze possible ways that a similar threat could occur in your own organization. Write down user behaviors that leads to those threats. Next up, analyze user behavior data and look for such behaviors. Set up notifications to get notified of such behaviors in the future. Well, that's all we have for the day. If you wish to download Analytics Plus, just scan the QR code flashing on your screen. So that's about it from our end. If you have any questions, please use the questions panel to your left to post your questions, and we'll be answering them shortly.
Thank you, Praveen and Sai. So, like Sai said, the Q&A session is open now. So, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them to our presenters. We'll wait for a minute to see if any new questions come in.
So when we are waiting for the questions, as I mentioned, we have a migration path from Password Manager Pro to PAM 360. So if anyone is interested in migrating to make use of all the advanced functionalities like BI with Analytics Plus, DevOps, you can very well contact us and we will be able to assist you in migrating your license from Password Manager to PAM 360.
Thank you, Praveen. I don't see any new questions coming in, so I think we can wrap up the Q&A. For all of you who have checked into the session, I hope the presentation was very useful. So if you have any follow-up questions later, you can always write to us at the email addresses displayed on screen, and our team will be glad to assist you. Once again, thank you all for attending the webinar. On that note, have a great day. Thank you, Praveen. Thank you, Sai. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Have a great day.